Welcome to today's show. My name is Trevor Lane. You can follow me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane. Today's show is brought to you by Greats. Go to greats.com for a phenomenal pair of sneakers. They are extremely comfortable. I have a pair myself, and I always get compliments on them whenever I wear them. And the great thing is that now you can actually get 15% off because Grace has decided to partner with us. All you got to do is use the promo code LakersNation at checkout. You get 15% off your order. It's a wonderful deal. Go check them out, greats.com. Well, on today's show, we've got a ton to talk about because a story came out about the Lakers potentially negotiating a buyout or perhaps a trade with forward Luol Deng, who hasn't seen very many minutes this season, but he is getting paid a ton. So I've brought in Keith Smith of Real GM to help us talk about that. We're going to go over all the different salary cap ramifications of something like that because Keith is a salary cap guru. He does a great job of it. And he also has his own show, the NBA Front Office Pod, and you can follow him on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. Keith, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So the story is, and this was a story by Ramona Shelburne of ESPN, that essentially she included a ton of details here, but the meat of it is that the Lakers and Luol Deng and his agent have been discussing some sort of a scenario that would allow Luol Deng to move on from the team because he's not getting any minutes right now. He's not part of the rotation. Corey Brewer beat him out for the backup small forward spot. There are no minutes to be had at backup power forward, even with Larry Nance Jr. out. And so Deng would like to go somewhere where he can play. The challenge with that is he's also making $18 million this year, and over the next 2 seasons after this, he'll be making about $36 million, which is an absolutely massive amount. So, Keith, what are the options here? Shelburne's piece mentioned maybe a buyout or perhaps a trade, but we know those are kind of problematic, right?
Yeah, for sure. Let's use the trade first. No one's going to give anything for Luol Deng at this point in his career. He's not that kind of player now. He makes too much money. You mentioned all the money that's owed not only this season, but then the $36.8 million over the next 2 years after that, and it's all fully guaranteed. So there's no easy out of that money either. So he's a net negative value on that contract, which is unfortunate for a guy who's had a good long career like he's had. So in order to trade him, what you're looking at there for the Lakers, they're going to have to give up something to get off of that money, whether that be draft picks. Generally, the going rate is a first-round pick per year, so you're looking at probably 2 first-round picks. This year, a team might say, hey, we'll just eat the rest of that deal, no problem. The Lakers, obviously, they don't want to take any money back in a trade that's beyond this season because they're looking to conserve cap space, which I know we're going to talk about and get into. And then the other piece becomes, what do they do as far as attaching a young player if they don't have the first-round picks? So could you attach a guy to Deng with maybe 1 first-round pick to get off that money? So that's what you're looking at trade-wise.
Well, and here's my thing is that if I'm an opposing team and I'm trading with the Lakers and the Lakers are suddenly hell-bent on getting off of Luol Deng's contract, to me, that's a clear signal that they have heard through some sort of a back channel or something that they're probably going to be able to sign a Paul George or a LeBron James or somebody of that caliber, because otherwise the Lakers wouldn't be too hard-pressed to move Deng. I mean, you probably don't give up a ton of assets to get rid of him unless you're bringing in one of those guys. So if you're getting that sense, aren't those picks devalued then? I mean, a first rounder from the Lakers right now certainly is valuable. If, say, the Lakers traded away their, say, 2020 first round pick with no protections, that's a pretty valuable pick. But if the Lakers suddenly have LeBron James and Paul George in addition to some other pieces, that pick is a lot less valuable. So won't other teams have to factor that into the equation as well when they're deciding how much it's going to take for them to take on Luol Deng?
Yeah, so let's break that down into parts because what you said is pretty interesting. The first big thing is they can't trade their 2018 pick, so you noted that, right? Because that's already an outstanding obligation that they have. It's tied up. It's going to be Philly or Boston, depending on where the pick lands, and that's a lot of complications to get into that no one really cares about. Just right. For your audience, Lakers don't have it. That's all you need to know. So now you're talking a 2020 pick, and once you get to there, the question becomes is is LeBron James, is Paul George, is whoever, are they enough with whatever the Lakers also keep and then add? Is that enough to how much does that devalue the pick? A lot of times when you're just looking to get off money, it's really just a first round pick. And the teams are hoping it'll be a really good one, but they're really at that point just saying, hey, just give us a first, and we'll eat the rest of that contract for you. So I don't think an opposing team is going to worry too much. The interesting thing is I think the Lakers, because they're looking to clear as much space as possible, you might get a team that says, hey, we'll take one pick and a young guy, maybe like a Josh Hart or somebody like that, in a deal where the Lakers might say, all right, maybe that's something workable. I didn't dare bring up Kyle Kuzma because I don't want people hunting me down here in Orlando to murder me because I brought up
Kuzma is sacred in Los Angeles at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm pretty far away, but I know that myself. So, so that's the challenge that comes in there if you're looking at a trade. Now, the other option is a buyout. Do you want to get into that now? Because that's I think maybe the more likely option potentially.
This is a good time to jump to that.
Okay, yeah. So with a buyout, how this works is generally the way a buyout works is a player gives back some money. Generally, it's to gain their freedom. Now, what we're hearing is Luol Deng wants to play. He believes he can still contribute to an NBA team. Whether he's right, wrong, or indifferent, that doesn't matter. That's what he believes to be true. So what we're hearing is that he is looking to maybe work a buyout. In the case of a buyout, what the Lakers would be looking to do is, hey, give us some money back. Now, Luol Deng has made a lot of money, but he's not going to get back, $36 million over the next 2 years, or even much in this season, likely. Maybe the Lakers can get him to give up $10 million of what he's owed in total or something along those lines, but he's not going to give back a lot of money just because he doesn't have to, and there's really no reason why he should. So what you're going to see there is if he gives that up, then what the Lakers would do is they would turn around and take whatever savings they got from Luol Deng, if any, and then they would stretch the money that's still owed to him for the next 2 years over a 5-year period. How the stretch provision works is you take any money that is owed and it can be stretched over twice the years left plus a year. So in this case, 2 years. So 2 times 2, 4, plus 1, that gets you to 5 years. If he doesn't give any money back at all, you're looking at about $7.3 million as a cap hit over the next 5 years. And that's why the most preferable method is to trade him. And there is no obligation left at all. So that's what you would really like to see, is completely clear that money out. But worst case scenario, that's what we're probably looking at some point, is that $7.3 million cap hit.
Right, and even if they are able to negotiate some sort of a buyout with him, that money still stays on the books for the length of the contract. I know there were a lot of questions about that. I saw it quite a bit on Twitter where people were assuming, buyout, he'll just be off the books. It's not that easy, right? That's going to last for the remainder of the contract, and then if they stretch it, it's going to go even longer, just at a lower hit per year. So there is no get out of jail free card here for the Lakers, unfortunately, in the situation of Luol Deng, right? I mean, they're going to have to feel some pain one way or another in order to part ways with Luol Deng, right?
Yeah, spot on. And what you're getting at there is, let's make the math really easy. Let's say he agrees to knock that number down. So this year, let's touch on that first. This year cannot be stretched at all. We're past that window. That window had to happen quite a while ago. So now what we're into is this year's money, even if they do negotiate it down, that all goes on this year. We're really talking about the next 2 seasons. So the 18-19 and the 19-20 season. And what we really care about is how much space can the Lakers have this coming summer, right? Because they're not going to do anything big this year as far as trades or try to sign anybody. That's not going to happen. We know that. So what we're really looking at is, what are they looking like in July of 2018 for cap space? So let's make the math really easy. Let's say Deng says, you know what, I'll take $10 million for each of 18-19 and 19-20. So $20 million in total. that $20 million still gets stretched over that 5-year period. So you'd be looking at a cap hit of $4 million a year. So that's a very long way of me answering your question of, yes, there is no get out of jail free card here. And a couple people have said to me but if they traded it, there's no cap hit. Yes, but then you gave up picks or players or some combo of the two to get there. So no one's going to be nice in the NBA and say, all right, give us 1 second-round pick and we'll eat that contract for you. That's not going to happen.
Right. There was no amnesty clause in this
Correct.
new collective bargaining agreement, which was unfortunate for the Lakers because they certainly could have used it here. Now, if the Lakers do wind up buying out Luol Deng, the downside of that is that he is automatically dead money on the books. If he's bought out, whatever he's bought out for, whether they stretch it or not, there's nothing they can do with that money other than the stretch. That money is just going to sit there. So if they go another route, like let's say they don't make a move with him, they get wind that LeBron James isn't coming, and Paul George isn't coming, so they decide to just hang on to Luol Deng. Well, they could then next year perhaps try to find, maybe the trade market changes a little bit and they can look to try and trade him then. If they decide to buy him out, that money is just stuck on the books. There's nothing they can do with it, and it's just dead. So that would be the downside to doing that, going that route. But again, I mean, it's going to come down to what the Lakers are hearing. If they feel like they can really get LeBron James, if they feel like they can really get Paul George as well, or a DeMarcus Cousins or somebody like that, then maybe this is something that they do. As much as a negative as it is to have cap space tied up, maybe they decide to bite the bullet and waive him, or I'm sorry, buy him out and then waive him, or they could perhaps trade him. But either way, it's not going to be an easy contract to get rid of.
You're right on with that. And one thing I want to add to that too is the timing of this story is interesting, and what that leads me to believe is this is more coming from the Deng camp, because he wants out. He wants to go somewhere where he can play, and because the Lakers, they don't have any reason to deal with this today. It goes back to what I said before. They're not looking to do anything this year. They're basically going to play out this year with the roster that they have, unless someone really throws them a great trade offer their way. So they're going to play out this year and then deal with it. And there's nothing that they can't do this summer that they could do now. So there's no reason to move on this until you really have to, which means this summer at the earliest.
Right. So, I mean, the only reason why they would do it now is if Deng maybe gave back way more money than they were expecting, or something comes along where they don't think it would be an option this summer. Like, people criticize the D'Angelo Russell trade like crazy, but we know that the cap space is going to be really tough to come by next summer. And so it's very possible that the offer of Brook Lopez, that 27th pick, and the cap space that was going to be freed up by Brook Lopez's expiring contract was the best offer they were going to get, and they felt like that was the case, and so that was why they made the move last summer rather than waiting till when they really, really needed the cap space next summer. So that would be the only scenario where they had a deal that they felt like wasn't going to be there when it came time to actually make moves in free agency next summer. So, yeah, I mean, as a much of a bummer as this can be for Luol Deng to sit around and not be playing and all that kind of stuff, for the Lakers, there's just not a whole lot of incentive for them to make a move now unless someone really makes it worth their while, whether that be Deng via a buyout and giving up a ton of money, or another team via trade, which is, I mean, that's not going to happen. No team's going to rush to go help the Lakers.
No, and you're right with that, and that's exactly those are the only situations where you move today to make something happen. The other thing I want to touch on real quick, just so everybody understands, people are looking at it and saying, well, these teams have cap space and they've handed out all this money over the last few years. We're not in that world anymore. The wild spending we saw, which is part of why the Lakers are in this position, because they spent all this money on Deng and Mozgov, is those days are gone. We are now back to our steady state in the NBA, which is only a couple teams. I only project there to be 5 or 6 that have cap space next season. And for them, it's because they're all coming at things from different positions. Even take a team like Philadelphia, who everybody's been dumping bad contracts on for years. Philadelphia now, because of the Embiid extension, JJ Redick's big cap hold, a presumed new deal coming for Robert Covington, they don't have a lot of cap space either. So what you're sitting and looking at is very few teams with cap space, so it's not as easy to find those teams to just say, hey, can you eat this deal for me and I'm going to give you a couple of picks. Those are going to be few and far between, which leads to things like expiring contracts having some value again and things like that, where we're trying to reset the market in a way where you're one of few standing with a bunch of money in the summertime versus one of 20 or 25 teams.
Right, exactly. And this is a totally different discussion, but for those that are hoping that Brook Lopez and Julius Randle and guys like that can be retained by the Lakers, this is actually kind of a good thing for the team and unfortunately a bad thing for the players because they're going to be heading into a very, very, very difficult free agent market, especially for a guy who's likely going to be restricted like Randle. So it's going to be an interesting summer to watch for the Los Angeles Lakers. So I'm not expecting a Luol Deng move anytime soon unless suddenly he decides he's going to give back a bunch of money. I think that's the only likely scenario. I mean, we saw Dwayne Wade give up, $8 million, I believe, to leave Chicago. So who knows? I mean, I suppose it's possible. But again, like Keith did such a great job outlining, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for LA right in this moment. Well, Keith, thank you so much for coming on here and helping me kind of explain all of this and go through all the different options here for the Lakers.
Absolutely. Hey, and I know it's Celtics Lakers on Wednesday, but we're all friends, so we can be nice and play nice. So I'm happy to help.
Thanks. Well, yeah, we'll root against each other Wednesday night, but then we can be back to being friends after that.
There we go. All right.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming on again. Follow Keith on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. Fantastic follow. All kinds of great salary cap info. Definitely go check that out. That's going to wrap things up for today. Once again, my name is Trevor Lane. You can find me on Twitter at Trevor_Lane. And for all the latest on the Luol Deng situation and everything else, go head over to LakersNation.com. We are a one-stop shop for all things Lakers. See ya.